rainy night in Victorian London. Soft opening. Welcome to the Sleepy Archive, a quiet place for learning at the edge of rest. This is a dark screen sleep audio episode. After the opening card, the screen will gently fade to black so you can rest your eyes. Tonight, we will step softly into a rainy night in Victorian London. We will not hurry through it. We will walk at the pace of lamplight on wet stone, with the rain making small sounds on windows, roofs, awnings, carriage tops, and the dark surface of the Thames. Victorian London was not one single city. It was many Londons gathered together, a capital of empire, a place of poverty and wealth, a city of workshops and clubs, of railway stations and churches, of cramped courts and elegant squares, of smoke, fog, advertisements, bells, newspapers, and constant movement. By day it could be overwhelming, but at night, under rain, its edges softened. The gas lamps blurred into halos. Horses moved more slowly. Footsteps found their own rhythm. Water ran along gutters and slipped through iron grates below the street. We will imagine the city in the later 19th century, when gaslight was common. Railways had changed distance. The Metropolitan Police were familiar figures, and the Thames embankment had begun to give the river a new shape. We will pass gently through streets, homes, kitchens, stations, and quiet workplaces. We will notice the materials of daily life: wool coats darkened by rain, cab wheels on granite sets, umbrellas shaking at doorways, coal smoke above chimneys, and newspapers folded under an arm. This is not a dramatic tour. There will be no chase through the fog, no grand scandal, no sudden alarm. Only a calm walk through an old city after sunset, paying attention to how people lived, moved, worked, waited, and rested while rain fell over London. So settle in. Let your own room become quiet. Let the present day loosen its grip. Outside, in the imagined distance, rain begins to touch the rooftops. A lamp is lit. A cab passes. The archive opens, and our rainy night begins. Rain over the city. Rain was an ordinary companion in Victorian London. It did not need to be a storm to change the city. Even a steady, moderate rain altered the sound of streets, the shine of pavements, the pace of pedestrians, and the smell of the air. London in the 19th century was a city of hard surfaces and soft weather. Rain fell on slate roofs, brick walls, church spires, market stalls, glass shopfronts, iron railings, wooden shutters, canvas awnings, and the broad backs of horses. It gathered in yards, darkened thresholds, and made the packed dirt of poorer courts cling to boots. In wealthier streets, where paving and drainage were better, water ran toward gutters and drains with a steady whisper. In narrower lanes, puddles could remain, reflecting a lamp, a signboard, or the lower half of a passerby. The rain also joined the city's other elements. It met coal smoke and chimney soot. It touched the residue of horses, the sweepings of markets, and the dust of construction. Victorian London was improving in many ways, but it was still a difficult environment for the senses. Rain could clean and complicate at the same time. It might settle dust, freshen a square garden, and rinse a shop window. It could also make refuse move, bring smells out of alleys and turn unpaved surfaces into a trouble for shoes and skirts. For the person walking home, rain changed posture. Shoulders drew inward, heads lowered, umbrellas tilted. A gentleman might carry an umbrella as part of the equipment of urban life. A working woman might make do with a shawl, a cloak, or the protection of a basket or bundle. Waterproof fabrics were developing through the century, including rubberized garments and Macintosh coats. But comfort still depended on money, habit, and luck. Many people simply got wet. At night, rain worked with gaslight to create one of the most familiar images of Victorian London: the shining street. Gas lamps did not produce the bright, even illumination of modern electric light. Their glow was warmer, smaller, and more local. In dry weather, they made islands of light. In rain, the islands lengthened and trembled. Light caught on wet stone, the curve of a carriage wheel, the side of a horse, the brass of a door handle, or the glass of a shopfront where goods had been arranged earlier in the day. The soundscape changed too. Wheels hissed rather than rattled. Hooves struck and slipped. Rain on umbrellas made a close, private tapping above the head. Rain on a cab roof was louder, a small drumming that surrounded the passenger inside. Rain on the Thames was almost invisible from a distance, but from a bridge or landing stage, one might see the countless dim marks it made on the river, each circle vanishing into the next. A rainy night could make London feel both larger and more intimate. The city stretched outward in every direction, full of unknown rooms and lives, but the rain narrowed attention to the next lamp, the next step, the nearest doorway. In that narrowing, there is something restful for our purposes tonight. We do not need to understand all of London at once. We only need to follow the rain. Gaslight and Wet Pavements. By the Victorian period, gas lighting had become one of the defining features of London after dark. Gas lamps were not new by the middle of the century, but their spread changed the practical and emotional map of the city. Streets that would once have fallen into deeper darkness could now be crossed under a chain of flames enclosed in glass. A lamplighter had once been a more visible part of the evening ritual, moving from lamp to lamp with a pole, bringing fire to the city one point at a time. As technology improved, some lamps could be managed more efficiently, but the image of the lamplighter remained powerful, a figure making dusk usable, marking the moment when the day had ended, but urban life continued. Gaslight was made from coal gas, produced in gasworks, and distributed through pipes. This was part of the wider industrial city, invisible systems beneath daily life, supplying light, water, sewage removal, transport, and communication. To stand under a gas lamp in the rain was to stand at the meeting point of many Victorian changes. The coal had been mined, the gas had been manufactured, the pipes had been laid, the lamp had been installed, cleaned, and maintained. The light seemed simple, but it belonged to a network. The lamps themselves created small circles of clarity. A person passing beneath one might be seen for a few seconds. hat brim shining, coat collar up, boots wet, face pale in the yellow light. Then the person moved into shadow again. This rhythm of appearance and disappearance made night walking different from day walking. It was not complete darkness, but neither was it full visibility. The city showed itself in portions. Shops contributed their own light. Some windows remained lit for display, especially in better commercial streets. Gas jets inside a shop could make fabrics, books, watches, gloves, toys, or jars of sweets appear inviting even after closing. In the rain, the window glass became a surface of reflections. The goods inside mixed with the street outside. A passerby's umbrella crossing over a row of neatly arranged objects. In poorer districts, lighting might be less generous. Courts and alleys could remain dim, with only the spill of a lamp from a main road, a candle behind a curtain, or the glow from a public house. Night in Victorian London was shaped by class as much as by technology. Wealthier streets were wider, better maintained, and more reliably lit. Narrow, crowded areas often kept more of the older darkness. The wet pavement mattered because London streets were increasingly engineered, but not uniformly so. Granite sets, paving stones, asphalt, macadamized roads, and rougher surfaces all had their place. Rain revealed every difference. Smooth stones gleamed. Broken surfaces held water. Curbstones guided the runoff. The edges of the street were busy with gutters, drains, and the work of keeping the city from drowning in its own weather. Gaslight in Rain gives us a gentle way to imagine Victorian modernity. It was not clean and weightless. It smelled faintly of gas and smoke. It depended on labor. It flickered. It could fail. Yet it offered reassurance. A line of lamps along a wet street told the walker that the city was awake enough to be crossed and old enough to have learned how to guide people home. Hansom cabs and slow wheels. Now listen in the mind for wheels in the rain. The hansom cab was one of the characteristic vehicles of Victorian London. Designed for speed and maneuverability, it was a two-wheeled carriage with space for passengers inside, and the driver seated high behind, controlling the horse from above. It could move through city traffic more nimbly than larger vehicles, and for those who could pay, it offered a relatively quick way through the wet streets. On a rainy night, the experience inside a cab would be enclosed and rhythmic. The passenger sat in a small compartment, perhaps smelling damp leather, wool, horse, and the city air that entered whenever the little doors or windows allowed it. The driver, more exposed, managed the reins and the route from his perch. The horse's hooves struck the road. The wheels passed through shallow water. The lamps outside slid by one after another. Not everyone rode in cabs. Many walked. Omnibuses carried groups along fixed routes. Carts, wagons, private carriages, and delivery vehicles filled the streets. London traffic could be dense, noisy, and difficult. But at a late rainy hour, some roads quieted enough for individual sounds to separate. One cab turning a corner, one horse snorting, one wheel finding a rut, one driver calling softly or sharply depending on the moment. The horse was central to the Victorian city. Before motor vehicles, urban movement depended heavily on animal labor. Horses pulled cabs, omnibuses, carts, vans, drays, and private carriages. They needed stables, feed, water, blacksmiths, harness makers, farriers, grooms, and people to clean the streets after them. A rainy night did not erase this world, it deepened its smells and softened its outlines. A cab stand near a station, theater, or hotel might be a place of waiting. Drivers rapped against the weather, horses standing under rain, lamps glowing, wheels still. A passenger arriving by train might step out into the station portico and choose a cab for the final part of the journey. The driver would know the streets by practice, not by a glowing map, and the route would be held in memory. Turn by the church, cross the square, avoid the worst congestion, take the bridge if the road is clear. The cab also reveals the geography of class and convenience. A comfortable ride through rain was not available to all. A clerk might take one if late, if carrying papers, or if dressed for an important call, but not every night. A domestic servant might be sent by omnibus or on foot. A laborer might walk, because walking cost nothing but strength and time. The wet city was therefore experienced differently by each person moving through it. For sleep, we can let the cab become a gentle image of passage. The passenger is not steering. The road is known to someone else. The rain taps above. The lamps pass slowly. The body feels the sway and pause of movement. London continues around the little carriage. But for a short while, the passenger is contained, carried, and almost rocked by the city itself. The Thames in the rain. Every old city has a shape beneath its streets. For London, that shape is the Thames. By the Victorian era, the Thames was both ancient and newly engineered. It had carried boats, goods, people, and waste for centuries. It connected London to the sea and to the inland country. It was a working river, a boundary, a highway, a smell, a danger, and a view. In the 19th century, especially after the terrible pollution problems that became impossible to ignore, large projects transformed parts of the river's edge. The Thames embankment, associated with major improvements in drainage and transport, gave portions of the central river a more ordered bank. On a rainy night, the river would not be silent. Water struck water. Chains moved. Barges shifted. A distant whistle or call might carry through the damp air. Bridges framed the darkness. Lamps along the embankment and on nearby streets made broken lines on the surface. The rain blurred the far bank and softened the silhouette of warehouses, churches, chimneys, and public buildings. The Thames was not the romantic, clean ribbon that an illustration might suggest. For much of the century, it was heavily polluted, receiving sewage and industrial waste. The construction of modern sewer systems under Joseph Bazalgette was one of the great engineering responses to this problem. By guiding sewage away from the central river and improving drainage, these works changed the health and habitability of the city. So even in a quiet sleep episode, the river asks us to remember infrastructure, the hidden labor of pipes, pumps, intercepting sewers, and embankments beneath the visible city. Rain made the drainage question immediate. A city as large as Victorian London needed to move water away from streets and homes. Gutters, drains, sewers, and river outfalls formed part of the night's unseen activity. While a person watched a lamp reflected in a puddle, water was also entering grates, running under roads, joining other flows, and traveling through the underground body of the city. At the river's edge, work continued by necessity. The docks and wharves did not simply vanish after dark, though some activity slowed. Goods had to be guarded. Boats had to be secured. Tides mattered. The river kept its own hours. A watchman near a warehouse might listen to rain on his hat and to the water below, aware of both weather and property. Crossing a bridge in the rain could be a memorable part of the night. A pedestrian might feel the wind more strongly over open water. The umbrella might tilt and strain. The city would appear in two long halves, north and south, joined by arches and lamps. The sound of traffic changed on the bridge surface. Below, the Thames moved with a patience much older than the gas lamps above it. For our quiet walk, the river gives depth. Streets are busy with human time. Shops closing, trains arriving, newspapers printing, dinners ending. The Thames moves in tidal time, moon time, weather time. Rain returns to water. The city exhales into the river, and the river carries the night onward. Homes behind curtains. Let us turn from the open street toward the windows. Victorian homes varied enormously. A townhouse in a respectable square, a modest terrace, a lodging house, a single room in a crowded court, and a servant's attic were all part of London's domestic world. The word home could mean privacy and comfort for some, and crowding and uncertainty for others. Rain at night touched them all, but not equally. In a middle-class house, the evening might be ordered by rooms. The front door opened to a hall. There might be a parlor, dining room, kitchen below stairs, bedrooms above, and perhaps a nursery or servant's room. Curtains were drawn not only for warmth, but for privacy. The public street and the private interior were separated by fabric, glass, shutters, and habit. Rain against a window made the room feel more enclosed. A lamp or gas bracket inside gave a steady glow. Fire might burn in the grate if the season required it. Chairs were arranged for reading, sewing, conversation, or quiet fatigue. Books and newspapers lay near hand. A clock ticked. Somewhere below, dishes were being washed, coal was being carried, and the practical work of keeping comfort alive continued. Domestic interiors were full of textiles, carpets, curtains, antimacassars, tablecloths, blankets, shawls, and heavy clothing hung to dry. In rain, the boundary between outside damp and inside warmth mattered greatly. Wet boots were wiped or removed. Umbrellas stood in a hall stand. Coats steamed faintly near a fire. A person coming home brought the weather in with them, and the house absorbed it. In less comfortable housing, Rain could be far more intrusive. Roofs leaked, windows fit poorly, walls were damp, rooms were shared. Families might live, cook, work, and sleep in a small space. Bedding might be limited, ventilation poor, and privacy scarce. For many Londoners, night did not mean a quiet drawing room, but a crowded lodging, a rented room, or a bed paid for by the night. It is important, even in a gentle history, not to smooth away these differences. Victorian London contained beauty, invention, and culture, but also severe inequality. Rain could be soothing to someone safe indoors and miserable to someone without adequate shelter. Our episode moves calmly, but it does not pretend that all listeners in the past were equally comfortable. Still, across many kinds of homes, night brought certain common movements. Fires were lowered, doors were checked, candles were carried carefully, children were settled, clothing was brushed, folded, or hung. A kettle might be filled for morning. A household might listen for the return of someone delayed by weather. Behind curtains, the city became a series of small islands. In one room, a young clerk copied a letter by lamplight before bed. In another, a mother laid out clothes for morning. In a kitchen below stairs, a servant finished the last washing up. In an attic, rain sounded closer to the roof, and the air was colder. In a basement room, the sound of wheels came muffled from above. The curtain is a gentle symbol here. It does not remove the city, but softens it. Behind it, rain becomes less a public inconvenience and more a private sound. Servants, kitchens, and late work. Many Victorian households, especially middle-class and upper-class ones, depended on domestic servants. Their labor made the calm appearance of evening possible for others. If a family sat in a warm room after dinner, someone had carried coal, cleaned grates, prepared food, polished utensils, answered bells, and managed laundry, dust, and countless small tasks. The kitchen at night was often the last working center of the house. It might be below stairs, warmer than some rooms, fragrant with food, soap, coal smoke, damp cloth, and iron. After dinner, dishes had to be cleared, leftovers managed, pans scrubbed, fires checked. The range required attention. The scullery had its own wet labor, washing, rinsing, draining, stacking. Rain outside could make this work feel enclosed and endless. A servant might hear it through an area window or down a stairwell, not as a romantic sound, but as weather that would make errands harder and clothing slower to dry. If someone had to go out, perhaps to post a letter, fetch something, or carry a message, the rain was a practical problem. Servants' sleep was shaped by duty. A maid might be up early to light fires before the family rose. A cook might begin before dawn. A footman or page might answer late calls. In some houses, bells connected rooms above to service areas below, reminding everyone that domestic quiet was not evenly distributed. The family's bedtime could create more work rather than less. The servants' rooms were often at the top of the house or in less desirable spaces. Attics could be cold in winter and hot in summer. Basements could be damp. Privacy varied. A young servant new to London might lie awake listening to unfamiliar urban sounds: wheels, calls, rain, pipes, footsteps, and the distant movement of the household. In smaller households, one servant might do the work of several, or family members might do everything themselves. The Victorian ideal of domestic order was widely described in manuals and magazines, but real homes adapted according to money, space, and necessity. A neat evening scene in a parlor always rested on labor, whether paid or unpaid. Kitchens also connect us to the material life of the city. Food came through markets, railways, carts, shops, and delivery boys. Coal came by trade routes and laborers. Water supply and drainage affected every sink and wash basin. A rainy night in the kitchen is therefore not isolated from the street. It is the street brought indoors as fuel, food, mud, wet boots, and news. For a sleepy image, we can imagine the very end of this labor. The last plate is put away. The range is made safe. The kitchen table is wiped. A small lamp is lowered or extinguished. The servant climbs narrow stairs, perhaps carrying a candle, perhaps pausing to listen to rain on a skylight. The house finally settles, not because work was absent, but because work has, for a few hours, been put down. Factories, workshops, and shops at rest. Victorian London was not only a city of homes and government buildings. It was a city of making, selling, printing, repairing, sorting, packing, and transporting. Workshops and small factories were woven through many districts. Tailors, printers, cabinet makers, metalworkers, instrument makers, bookbinders, bakers, laundries, breweries, and countless other trades gave the city its daily pulse. At night in the rain, many of these places closed or slowed. A workshop after hours has a particular quiet. Tools remain where hands left them. Benches hold shavings, cloth scraps, paper dust, metal filings, jars, brushes, thread, ledgers, and unfinished work. The rain outside makes the closed door feel more final. The shop sign creaks slightly. The window reflects the street instead of displaying the interior clearly. Some work, of course, continued. Bakers worked through hours when others slept. Printers might labor late, especially for newspapers. Railway and dock labor followed schedules that did not respect ordinary bedtime. The city had a night economy. Guards, drivers, police, nurses, publicans, market workers, postal workers, and many others whose rest came at different times. But even where machinery stopped, its presence remained. The Industrial Revolution was not only in northern mills and mines, it was also in London's systems of production, communication, and distribution. Machines, presses, boilers, and engines changed the rhythm of labor. When they rested, the quiet could feel almost physical. A print shop is a good place to pause. Newspapers were central to Victorian public life. The appetite for news grew with literacy, cheaper paper, rail distribution, telegraphy, and urban politics. By the end of the century, newspapers could move through the city with remarkable speed. At night, editors, compositors, pressmen, and boys prepared pages that would become part of morning conversation. Rain on the roof above a print room might be nearly lost under the noise of work, ink, type, and machinery. A small shop, by contrast, might sleep more deeply. Goods covered, till counted, door bolted. Perhaps the shopkeeper and family lived above, making commerce and home part of the same building. The rain would touch both the sign outside and the bedroom window upstairs. In the morning, shutters would open, the threshold would be swept, and the public face of the business would return. Rest in a working city is never complete. It moves around. One trade sleeps while another wakes. One street darkens while a station remains bright. A bakery begins before a clerk has finished dreaming. A newspaper press runs while a tailor's needle lies still. This is one of the peaceful complexities of our rainy night. The city does not shut like a box. It breathes in layers. Police, watchmen, and the safer street. Earlier London had night watchmen, often imagined with lanterns, staffs, heavy coats, and calls of the hour. By the Victorian period, the Metropolitan Police, founded in 1829, had become a major presence in the city. The policeman on his beat was part of the modern urban night, walking, observing, deterring, assisting, and representing a new model of organized public order. In the rain, a constable's beat could be lonely and repetitive. He walked assigned streets at assigned times, noticing doors, windows, suspicious movement, drunkenness, lost travelers, and small emergencies. His uniform absorbed weather. His boots met the same puddles again and again. Gas lamps helped him see and be seen, but shadows remained. The idea of the beat is restful in its pattern, though the work itself could be demanding. A route repeated through the hours becomes a kind of human clock. Past the closed shop, around the square, along the mews. Pause near the public house. Listen at the corner. Continue. Rain on helmet or cape. Step, look, listen, step. Public houses were among the places where night remained lively. The Victorian relationship with alcohol was complex, touching sociability, poverty, reform movements, regulation, and habit. A rainy evening might draw people indoors to drink, talk, warm themselves, or delay the walk home. Near closing time, the street could briefly grow louder before quiet returned. Police also helped manage the city's vulnerabilities: accidents, theft, fire, lost children, and the hazards of traffic. Fire was a constant fear in cities built from wood, fabric, coal, gas, and flame. Rain lowered some risks while creating others. Slippery streets, poor visibility, and cold could produce their own troubles. The old watchman and the newer policeman together remind us that night required human maintenance. It was not enough to light lamps. Someone had to walk the city, check it, answer calls, and create confidence that ordinary people could move through public space after dark. For someone inside a house, the distant step of a policeman might be reassuring. For someone walking alone, the sight of a uniform under a lamp could matter. For someone doing wrong, it was a warning. The rainy street held all these meanings at once. We can let the constable pass quietly through our episode. He does not need a story. He is simply there, moving through the softened city while others sleep, his route marked by lamps, rain, and the memory of streets. Letters, newspapers, and night reading. Victorian London was a city of words. Letters, newspapers, handbills, posters, railway timetables, advertisements, shop signs, books, sermons, official notices, and theater bills covered its days and shaped its nights. The postal system became faster and more regular during the 19th century, especially after the introduction of the penny post in 1840. Letters were cheaper to send, and correspondence became part of ordinary life for more people. A rainy night might find someone sitting near a lamp, writing to a relative in the country, a friend abroad, a fiancé, a debtor, an employer, or a child away at school. Writing a letter by lamplight was a slow act. Paper set out, pen dipped, words considered, ink drying. The sound of rain could make distance feel sharper. The person addressed was not instantly reachable. A letter accepted delay. It carried thought through time, by collection, sorting, rail, coach, foot, and hand. Newspapers offered another kind of connection. They brought Parliament, crime reports, ship arrivals, market prices, serialized fiction, advertisements, foreign news, and opinion into homes, clubs, coffee rooms, and railway compartments. A paper read at night might already be old by modern standards, but it could still make the world feel present. Reading in Victorian interiors depended on light. Gaslight and lamps extended reading hours, but they could strain the eyes and cost money. A person might sit close to the source, the page angled carefully. In a comfortable room, this is an image of calm. Rain outside, fire inside, newspaper opened, the day reviewed before sleep. In a less comfortable room, reading might be difficult, crowded, or impossible. Printed words also filled the street. Posters on walls advertised plays, lectures, remedies, exhibitions, shipping lines, sales, and political meetings. Rain loosened paste and darkened paper. By morning, some notices would curl at the corners, their bold letters softened by weather. There is a gentle contrast between the rain and the written word. Rain blurs, print fixes. Rain makes ink vulnerable, printing multiplies it. The city at night is full of messages in transit, letters in bags, newspapers on presses, telegrams clicking through wires, signs shining behind wet glass. Before sleep, a person might put a letter aside unfinished, fold a newspaper, mark a place in a book, or leave a note on the hall table for morning. The words would wait. The rain would continue. Railway stations after dark. Few places show Victorian change more clearly than the railway station. London's great termini connected the capital to the country and beyond. Euston, Paddington, King's Cross, St. Pancras, Victoria, Waterloo, Liverpool Street, and others, each with its own roots, architecture, and atmosphere. At night in rain, a railway station was both shelter and threshold. Outside, cabs waited, horses steamed, umbrellas crowded, porters moved luggage, and lamps shone on wet paving. Inside, under iron and glass roofs, sound expanded, footsteps, voices, whistles, doors, steam, announcements, and the low presence of trains. Railways changed time. They made schedules more important. and helped standardize time across the country. A train due at a certain minute created a new kind of expectation. People arranged departures, meetings, business, and letters around timetables. At night, the station clock had authority. It told passengers whether they had time to buy a paper, send a telegram, find a cab, or simply wait. Rain made arrivals especially vivid. A traveler stepping down from a carriage might bring damp air with them, along with the smell of coal smoke and upholstery. Porters called out. Families reunited quietly or hurriedly. A tired passenger wrapped a coat tighter and followed luggage toward the cab rank. Someone else stood under the station roof, reluctant to step into the weather. The railway station gathered many classes of people into one system, though not into equal comfort. First-class waiting rooms, refreshment rooms, third-class carriages, luggage offices, parcels, mail bags, soldiers, clerks, tourists, emigrants, and workers all belonged to the railway world. The station at night was a place of movement, but also of waiting, one of the most Victorian states of mind. Steam and rain have a natural kinship in the imagination. Both soften outlines. Both rise and fall through light. A locomotive at rest under a roof might breathe faintly, metal dark and warm, while rain ticked on glass high above. The engine had crossed miles of countryside, carrying people from one life into another part of the city. For our sleepy journey, the station can be a place we pass through slowly. We do not need to board. We only stand for a moment beneath the great roof, watching reflections on the platform, hearing rain overhead, and a departing train moving away into the dark. Dreams in a crowded capital. What did Londoners dream about on rainy Victorian nights? We cannot know in any complete way. Dreams vanish unless someone writes them down, and even then they change in the telling. But we can imagine the conditions from which dreams rose. A child in a nursery might dream of horses, puddles, lamps, and the pattern of rain on glass. A servant might dream of bells, stairs, duties forgotten, or a country home left behind. A clerk might dream of columns of numbers, railway times, letters, and wet streets. A factory worker might dream with the rhythm of machines still lingering in the body. A sailor lodging near the docks might hear rain and dream of the sea. Victorian culture took dreams seriously in many different ways. Some people read them through religion, some through folklore, some through emerging sciences of the mind and nerves, some through popular dream books that assigned meanings to images. Dreams could be warnings, nonsense, digestion, memory, temptation, or mystery, depending on who was asked. The sleeping city was crowded not only with bodies, but with impressions. London offered more images than any mind could sort in a day. Advertisements, faces, vehicles, shop windows, smoke, poverty, wealth, uniforms, animals, machinery, churches, theaters, bridges, and news from across the world. At night, the mind might file these fragments in strange orders. Rain may have shaped dreams by sound. A steady sound can become part of sleep. It can cover sharper noises, soften the environment, and create a background against which the mind drifts. But rain can also wake a person if it enters through a leak, rattles a loose pane, or signals that morning travel will be uncomfortable. In crowded lodging houses, sleep itself could be fragile. People shared rooms, beds, walls, and air. Snoring, coughing, crying infants, late arrivals, and early departures shaped the night. In wealthy houses, sleep might be quieter, but not necessarily peaceful. Worry, grief, illness, and ambition crossed class boundaries. The dream life of Victorian London belongs to the hidden archive. Official records tell us about streets, laws, buildings, and institutions. Diaries and letters give glimpses of private thought. But millions of dreams dissolved each morning, leaving no trace except perhaps a mood at breakfast or a sentence spoken to someone nearby. Tonight, we can honor that vanished archive gently. As rain falls over the old city, every sleeping person carries a private London inward. The outer city has streets and lamps. The inner city has memory, hope, fear, and rest. Toward dawn, eventually, even the longest rainy night begins to loosen. Before dawn, London did not become instantly bright. The change came gradually. The black sky thinned to charcoal, then gray. Lamps still burned, but their authority weakened. The rain might continue, or soften, or stop entirely, leaving water on sills and streets. Chimneys began to smoke more actively as fires were lit or revived. Kitchens woke first in many homes. Bakers had already been at work. Markets prepared. Railway stations stirred into stronger motion. Early morning city belonged to workers. Milk sellers, street sweepers, market carts, newspaper boys, servants, porters, and laborers moved before many households were awake. Rain made their work harder, but work began anyway. London's day did not wait for pleasant weather. In houses, servants rose to light fires, carry water, open shutters, black-lead grates, and prepare breakfast. In humbler rooms, family members woke close together, negotiating space, warmth, and the need to begin. A person who had slept poorly still had to face the day. A person who had slept well might enjoy the soft reluctance of leaving a warm bed while rain whispered outside. Newspapers appeared, damp at the edges if carried through weather. Letters entered the system. Shops uncovered windows. Horses were harnessed. Cabs returned to busier movement. The constable's night beat gave way to the day's traffic. The river, unchanged in its deeper motion, reflected a paler sky. Dawn reveals what night concealed. Puddles show where stones are uneven. Posters hang torn. The mud on a hem becomes visible. Work left unfinished demands attention. But dawn also brings the gentle mercy of ordinary continuation. The city has passed through the night. The lamps can be extinguished. The rain has written its temporary script on every surface. For us, nearing the end of this episode, dawn does not need to wake us fully. It can remain distant, a soft gray beyond the curtains. We have walked through the rainy streets, listened at the river, paused in kitchens, stations, shops, and rooms. We have seen how Victorian London at night depended on light, labor, whether transport, print, policing, class, and countless private acts of endurance. The city was never only picturesque. It was hard, crowded, smoky, unequal, and alive. Yet under rain, viewed slowly, it offers a restful historical landscape. Lamps reflected in wet stone, a cab moving carefully, a newspaper folded beside a chair, a kitchen fire lowered, a train sighing beneath glass, and the Thames carrying the night toward morning. Soft ending. Now let the old city grow quiet behind you. The cab has turned the corner. The lamps are smaller now. The river is only a dark movement beyond the bridge. Curtains are drawn. The kitchen is still. The last page has been folded. The station clock continues, but from far away. Rain remains, steady and soft. It falls on slate, brick, iron, glass, stone, and water. It falls on streets that have changed and streets that have vanished. It falls in memory, where history becomes gentle enough to rest beside. You do not need to follow every detail. You can let the names and images drift apart. Gaslight, pavement, hansom cab, Thames, curtain, kitchen, newspaper, station, dawn. Each one can fade like a lamp seen through rain. The archive will keep the city for another night. You can set it down now. Rest your eyes. Let the screen stay dark. Let the rain continue somewhere far away. And when you are ready, sleep.